"Stop! Please don't do that." My voice shook as I ran toward him, but I was already too late. He pulled my painting off the wall and laughed. "This," he said, holding it between his fingers, "you call this art?" My chest tightened. "That's mine," I whispered. "I worked on it every night." Rainwater dripped from my hair onto the floor. My school uniform clung to my skin. I had run all the way home just to finish it. "Mum," I turned toward her quickly, "tell him to give it back." She stood near the kitchen doorway, silent, her arms folded like she was tired of the whole thing. For 1 second, hope filled my chest. She would stop him. She had to. Instead, she sighed. "Go to your room." The words hit harder than any slap. "What?" I asked softly. "I said, go to your room," she repeated. "Not him, me." I was 13 years old, soaking wet, barefoot, standing in the middle of a house that suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. The paper ripped in half, slowly, deliberately. Rip. Colourful pieces floated to the floor like broken dreams. Something inside my chest cracked. "Maybe next time," he whispered, grabbing my wrist tight enough to make me gasp. "You'll learn respect." Pain shot through my arm. "Mum," I begged again. She turned her back. That was the moment I stopped being a child. Because when your own mother looks away from your pain, you learn very quickly that love has conditions. That night, after the bedroom light went off, I sat on my bed listening to the clock tick. Every second felt louder. I packed quietly 3 shirts, my sketchbook, and the coins I had been hiding for months inside a sock. I opened the front door slowly. Cold air rushed into my face. I thought I was escaping him. I didn't know I was running straight into the truth my mother buried for 13 years. Because 3 days later, a stranger sat beside me at a bus station. He didn't ask my name. He didn't smile. He only said one thing. "Your mother isn't who you think she is." I laughed until he handed me an envelope, and when I opened it, my hands started shaking, because inside was a photograph of me, taken years before I could even remember, standing beside a woman who was not my mother. Range is velout in the time. "You're my whole world, Lila." She said it every night. Tucked the blanket under my chin, pressed her lips to my forehead, whispered it like a secret, like a promise. I believed her. I was 7 years old. Why wouldn't I? The night Daddy left, the front door slammed so hard the windows shook. I sat up in bed and listened for his footsteps to come back. They never did. Just silence, the kind that presses against your ears and refuses to leave. After that, it was just us, her and me. Our apartment was tiny and a little broken. The kitchen sink dripped all night, the radiator clanked like an old man coughing, and we ate noodles so often I could cook them in my sleep. But it smelled like her lavender soap and Sunday bread. On cold nights, she'd wrap us both in the same big quilt, and we'd watch old cartoons until I fell asleep on her shoulder. Those were the good years. I'd draw pictures of us, 2 stick figures holding hands under a lopsided yellow sun, and she'd pin every single one to the fridge. "My little artist," she'd say, tapping my nose. She worked long shifts at the diner, coming home smelling like coffee and fried eggs, her feet aching, her apron stained. But she always made time for me. She'd braid my hair before school, her fingers quick and gentle, telling me stories about climbing trees as a girl, scraping her knees under wide summer skies. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that felt like everything. Then he walked in. His name was Carl. I was 9 the first time I saw him, sitting at the diner counter, swinging my legs, sipping the chocolate milkshake she'd sneaked me. He came in loud, all big shoulders and a booming laugh, slapping the counter and ordering like he owned the place. He winked at her. She blushed. My stomach twisted. I didn't know why then, but something inside me, some small, quiet part, already knew. He started coming around, sitting on our couch with his boots on the coffee table, filling up all the space with his voice. She smiled at him in a way she hadn't smiled in a long time, bright, hopeful, like sunlight breaking through clouds. I wanted her to be happy. I really did. So I smiled too. I told myself, if she's happy, I can be too. 3 months later, his boxes showed up in our hallway. His cologne swallowed the lavender. He called me Kid, never Leela, and his smiles felt borrowed, like he'd return them any day. I showed him my drawings once, hoping he'd stick one on the fridge the way she always did. He glanced at them, grunted, and went back to his beer. I told myself it was fine, but things change slowly, sneakily, like shadows spreading across a room while you're not looking. She started working later. Carl would watch me instead. He'd snap at me for leaving dishes in the sink, for laughing too loud, for just existing in a way that bothered him. "You're not a princess, Kid," he'd say, his voice sharp as broken glass. When she came home, I'd rush to her, pulling on her sleeve, telling her what he'd said. She'd kiss my forehead and murmur, "He's just tired, Lila. Be good, okay? Be good." I was 10 years old. I was already trying so hard to be good. She still braided my hair. She still tucked me in. But her stories had stopped. Her eyes kept darting to the door where Carl waited. The word I used for her felt heavier every time I said it, like I was shouting it across a river that kept getting wider. I turned 11 that winter, and the apartment felt like it was holding its breath. I tried everything to win Carl over. I cleaned the kitchen until it gleamed. Once I baked cookies, lumpy, burnt things, and left them on a plate with a paper napkin, like I'd seen in a magazine. He took one bite, spat it into the trash, and laughed. "Kid, stick to colouring books." She rubbed my shoulder. "He's just teasing, Lila. Don't take it to heart." But it lodged there, like a splinter, deep, invisible, hurting every time I moved. School became the place I could breathe. I'd linger in the library after the bell, pulling books off shelves, stories about girls who slayed monsters, who ran away to sea, who saved themselves when no one else would. I wanted to be them. I needed to be them. One evening I found her in the kitchen, crying. Her hands were shaking as she chopped onions. I told myself, that's all it was, the onions. But her sobs were too deep, Too real. Mummy? I stepped closer. What's wrong? She wiped her face fast, the way you do when you've been caught. Just the onions, sweetheart. Go do your homework. I wanted to ask, is it Carl? Does he scare you too? But before I could say another word, he walked in heavy footsteps, tired voice. Dinner ready yet? Her face changed, like a curtain falling. Almost, she said softly, and turned back to the stove. I slipped away to my room, the knot in my throat tighter than it had ever been. Then one night I heard them through the wall. I was supposed to be asleep. I wasn't. She's too sensitive, Carl said. You coddle her. It makes her weak. Her voice was soft, pleading. She's just a kid, Carl. She's trying. Then she needs to try harder. I held still, waiting for her to say no, to say I was enough, to say I was her world. Instead, I heard her sigh. I'll talk to her. She'll behave. She'll behave. I pulled the blanket over my head, but the words followed me in. I started keeping a journal after that, a beat-up notebook I hid under my mattress. I wrote down everything. The old her, dancing in the kitchen, the cookies in the trash, the way her voice went soft around him like she was afraid to break something. Writing was the only place I still felt like me. Is lesting a mounds in the days? 12 is supposed to be the year you start figuring out who you are. I was figuring out how to be invisible. Carl's rules had grown like weeds, twisting into every corner of our life. No music after 7. No dishes left in the sink. Ever. No attitude, which could mean anything from rolling my eyes to simply breathing in a way he didn't like. I followed every rule. I tiptoed around him like the whole apartment was made of thin ice. It didn't matter. His words piled up like stones in my chest, too many to count, too heavy to carry. I'd look to her after each one, waiting. Please, say something. He's just stressed, Lila. Don't make it worse. His words hurt, but hers cut bone deep. She was supposed to be my shield. Instead, she kept handing him the sword. Then came the day I found Carl at the kitchen table, with my journal open in his hands, his eyes moving across my pages, my secret, private, only mine pages. My heart stopped. What's this garbage? He held it up. You think you're some kind of poet now? Give it back. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. He tossed it across the table, pages sprawling, and when I lunged for it, his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Hard, the kind of hard that leaves a mark. Don't be dramatic, kid, he said. Cold, quiet. I yanked free and ran to my room, holding the journal against my chest like a wound. When she got home, I was waiting at the door. I held out my arm. He hurt me, I said. Look. She looked at the bruise purple, the size of 4 fingers. She looked at Carl, leaning in the doorway, watching TV like nothing had happened. Leela, she said softly, you must have upset him. The world went quiet. He grabbed me. He didn't mean it." She turned away. "Wash up for dinner." I stood there a moment longer, staring at the back of her head. Then I went to my room and locked the door. I wrote in the journal, "She didn't care. She chose him." That night, I started another list on the next page. Bus routes, departure times, Grandma's address from an old Christmas card I kept tucked in the back pocket. A plan. Small and fragile as paper, but mine. With house in development, I was 13 when the storm finally arrived. The fridge started getting locked when I'd misbehaved. I'd go to bed hungry, stomach growling, staring at the ceiling, counting the days until I could get out. The sock under the mattress was growing saved lunch money, coins from the sidewalk, $1 found in the school parking lot. It wasn't much, but it was my way out. I worked on the painting for weeks. A girl standing alone in a rainstorm, her face blurred but her back straight, tall, unbroken. It was the most honest thing I had ever made. The night it happened, I'd stayed late at school to finish it. When I walked in the door, soaking wet, he was already in the hallway. Arms crossed, eyes dark. "Stop! Please don't do that." My voice shook as I ran toward him, but I was already too late. He grabbed the painting right out of my hands and tore it in half. The two pieces floated to the floor like broken wings. I watched them fall, and something inside me fell with them. "Mummy, please." My voice broke. "Choose me." She stood. She moved toward Carl. She put her hand on his arm. "Let's not fight," she said. "Leela, go to your room." Her voice was flat, empty, like a room all the furniture had been carried out of. I looked at her, really looked at the tired lines around her eyes, the way she leaned toward him, the way she wasn't looking at me, and I understood. Finally, completely, she was not going to choose me. Not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. I didn't go to my room. I grabbed my journal and walked out the front door into the rain. I sat under a street light 2 blocks away, cold soaking through my clothes, and opened to a blank page. She chose him. I'm done. Then underneath it, smaller. I am not nothing. Every A is God are worse. I didn't go home until the rain stopped. That night, I packed quietly. 3 shirts. My sketchbook. The sock of coins, $112 pressed against my ribs inside my jacket. I left a note on my bed. I'm going to Grandma's. I'm okay, don't worry. I stared at it for a moment. Part of me wanted to write more, to say I loved her even now, even after everything, even while I was walking away. But some things are too big for notes. Some things have to wait until you're safe enough to feel them. I passed the kitchen on the way out. Her lavender soap sat on the counter, the bar worn thin, the smell still the same as all those Sunday mornings when we were enough for each other. I closed my eyes. Then I opened the front door and walked through it. The bus station was 12 blocks away. I walked every one with my eyes forward. The bus ride was 1 hour and 40 minutes. I pressed my forehead against the cold window and watched the town dissolve into fields, the fields into highways, the highways into something that looked like possibility. Grandma was already at the station when the bus pulled in. She was standing by the door in her rose-coloured coat, and when she saw me step off, she opened her arms without a single word. I walked into them. She held on. The kind of holding that means, I've got you, I've had you this whole time. That night we sat at her kitchen table with warm soup and bread and the radio playing low. She listened while I talked. Not everything, not yet, just enough. The bruise, the journal, the painting torn in two. Her hand on Carl's arm. Grandma didn't make a face. She didn't cry. She just nodded, steady as a heartbeat. You did exactly right, my spark. You got yourself out. But what happens now? I asked. Now, she said, you rest, and then we figure it out together. I slept that night under a quilt that smelled like cedar and old sunshine. I slept without listening for footsteps. In the morning, I sat in her garden and sketched the roses' tight little buds, not quite open yet, protecting the softness inside. I wrote underneath the drawing, "This is Lila. She is 13. She got out." Then I thought for a moment and added one more line. She is not done yet. To raise? 3 days passed quietly. On the 4th morning, I was sitting alone at the bus station downtown. Grandma had sent me to collect a package from the courier office nearby. I was early. I sat on the hard plastic bench, sketchbook on my knees, drawing nothing in particular. A man sat beside me. He was older, well-dressed, calm in a way that felt deliberate, like he had practiced it. He didn't ask my name. He didn't smile. He only said one thing. "Your mother isn't who you think she is." I laughed, a short, tired laugh. "I know exactly who she is." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, thick, sealed. He set it on the bench between us like he was placing a chess piece. "Open it," he said. I didn't want to. I don't know why I did. Maybe because something in his voice wasn't threatening. It was careful, the way someone sounds when they've been carrying a heavy thing for a long time and have finally decided to put it down. I picked up the envelope, slid my finger under the seal. Inside was a photograph, old, slightly faded at the edges. The kind of photo that has lived in a drawer for years. And in it was me, younger, much younger, 3 years old, maybe 4, wearing a yellow dress I had never seen before, laughing at something outside the frame, standing beside a woman, her hand resting on my shoulder, her eyes looking down at me with the kind of love you cannot fake. A woman I had never seen in my life, who was not my mother. My hands started shaking. I looked up at the man. He was watching me quietly. "Who is she?" I whispered. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the 6 words that cracked my entire world in 2 wider than Carl ever had, wider than the torn painting, wider than any door that had ever slammed in my face. "She is your real mother, Lila. Before you leave, I need you to understand something. This story is not just about Lila. It is about every child who ever smiled to protect a parent's feelings. Every child who packed a bag in the dark and called it survival, every child who loved someone who wasn't strong enough to love them back properly, if that child was you, you made it. And that matters. If you know that child, see them, say something, do something. Love is not supposed to have conditions, and silence is never neutral. Subscribe for more stories that dare to tell the truth, and share this, because the right person needs to hear it today. To be continued.